Hey, welcome to another awesome episode of the Indie Game Manual for September 30th. I obviously have not done any laundry since I'm not wearing a cool t-shirt, so I have to wear something fancy today. But it's a good thing because I'm here with Sam Roberts, Festival Director of Indiecade, with me, so I have to wear something fancy for you. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you very much for having me.
Indiecade is this week.
Yes.
You have to be so busy right now. There's over 100 games that are going to be in lovely downtown Culver City. So many developers are going to be there, so many talks. What is it like right now for you?
Well, the amazing thing about doing a big event like this is that actually most of the planning is all done. Mm-hmm. Right now it's like, it's all kinetic energy. 100 games and 100 speakers and 1,000 visitors are hanging above me in the air, and I'm just waiting for them to fall. So stressful, but exciting. We're super pumped about this festival.
And like I said, over 100 indie games. Of course, I think one of the unique things about Indiecade is the fact that your games, your collection of games, be it 100, be it 10, has a very unique sort of like feel to them. There's like a unique sort of like set to them. This is very different than just sort of like the PAX 10. This is very different than the IGF, even though you both share a little bit of both between the two. Can we talk about like maybe a couple of the games that you have and how they sort of like have this Indiecade feel to them, this Indiecade sort of like logic? Like why is this Indiecade worthy?
Yeah, I mean, it's always hard to pick just a few. I love all the games that we get submitted, but I can just start talking about games and then we'll see which ones come out. Sort of.
Sure.
So I very much agree with you about the Indiecade feel. Like, one of my favorite games that's a nominated game in this year's festival is Space Team. And I think you've talked about Space Team a little bit already on the show here. But as we all know, Space Team is a multiplayer game. It's local multiplayer. You're getting people together. And this amazing sort of like high energy role-playing act comes over you as you're playing. You're suddenly on the spaceship. You're screaming at your friends. Everything is falling to shit. I don't know if I can say shit on here.
It's fine.
Okay. But so it's certainly a game that I would want everyone who comes to Indiecade to come out and play, but it's a game that really personifies a lot of what we're looking for when we're looking for in games. And our set of games in Indiecade is chosen really primarily to reflect the breadth of what games can do, right? We're looking for the experiences that are not sort of this narrow column of the traditional video game experience, but really the broad, what are our human interactions with games? How do we socialize with them? How do we emotionalize, which isn't a word? How do sometimes they give us emotions? I don't know.
Use it today if you can.
Right, and so Space Team does all these things. It's very inventive. It's sort of a sidestep to a lot of what we're seeing, but it's also tied into what's happening with games right now. Right. There's local multiplayer. There's a lot of this bringing people back together to play together.
Sort of like the couch experience that I've seen. You have like a esports section that I saw that was excellent. A lot of games that have come out recently.
Yeah, and
has
all
been really
local
cool.
multiplayer.
Yeah, exactly. Where you can actually sort of like, if you are playing with someone, they are right beside you. Like Ivanov, I think last year. Monaco is definitely a great couch game.
It's an amazing couch game.
I think you have Dive Kick.
We're showing Dive Kick in the esports area, which is awesome.
Which we covered here, and I think we've even had like some guys just record themselves playing it, which makes for it. It is a game that is fun to play, but it is also fun to watch other people play the game.
Yeah, I mean, I spent a big chunk of my day yesterday watching 104 gentlemen play football on a field, right? It's not unusual that we have games that are fun to watch. It's just not what we think of as games. And so this is why I think there is this pushback towards local multiplayer and why we have the esports tent.
One of the things that I really enjoy about Indiecade is also the stories that the games tell. I think there's a very unique sort of set of games that you bring, or Indiecade brings out, where it's just like you never see these sort of stories. I think That Dragon Cancer is completely Gone Home. We've talked about games like that. What are some of the games that?
One of my favorite examples of a story game in this year's festival, and again, this is something that sort of highlights innovation, new thinking, pushing into different directions of how we can express with this medium is a game that's called Save the Date. And Save the Date, when it begins, you start playing and you're going out on this date, and things go wrong, and you try and like sort of backtrack and figure out how to have the date right. But pretty quickly, what happens every time you go out is that your date dies. She just dies over and over and over and over again.
Terrible.
And you start playing where you're loading these saves and going back and playing it differently. And this is what's amazing about it, the game narrative is aware of that. Right. So normally if I'm playing a game like this and I'm going through and I fail, that's a break in the game narrative. It's like, okay, now this didn't happen, and we travel back in time and we see if we can do it again. And like that even is never expressly in the narrative. It plays as though you always succeeded all the way through, which is disjunctive for the audience. It sort of takes you out of it. You don't immerse. Whereas with Save the Date, this restarting and retrying is an essential part of the narrative. And there's this part you come to in the game reasonably quickly where all of a sudden the game is talking to you about sort of how you are now predicting the future and what's going on, and you're like, oh my God, the game knows that I'm restarting, and restarting is a part of this story.
It's sort of been following you this whole time.
Right. And so in that just takes this moment which often will take me out of a game and uses it to pull me deeper into the game. It sort of channels what we think of as a challenge with storytelling in games and makes it an advantage. And I think that's super clever, and I'm really pleased that we get to show it all.
No, it's a fantastic game, and actually I think it's available for people to download and
right now.
Try right now. So it's free, download it, you have no excuse. What's another game?
Something I love. One thing we try to do a lot of at Indiecade is, again, we're talking about the breadth of games.
Right.
So we do play digital games, traditional things like Save the Date or iOS stuff that's happening on iPads. You mentioned Dive Kick, which is like a computer game, but we also show big games and tabletop games. So one of my favorite tabletop games we're showing this year, we're showing at Night Games, which is an awesome part of the festival.
It is, and absolutely, if you want to go to, obviously go to Indiecade, but if you can, you have to check out Night Games.
Like, you only go to one thing, go to Night Games.
If you go to one thing, you go to two things.
Go to the fire station at Night Games.
Go to the fire station at Night Games. But it's like a party. It's like a festival. It's like there's big screens and there's games happening in all the other places.
And one special thing we have this year, so traditionally we have a bunch of screens going and a bunch of different games happening on them, often enhanced by or interacting with music, pretty lights, stuff that plays well at night. But we also have something we're calling the reading room, which is like the quiet, reflective, out-of-the-way, dark, creepy space.
Nice.
Creepy might not be the appropriate word, but you know what I mean. It's got sort of that mood to it, like camp night or staying up late with your friends.
Camp night.
Telling ghost stories maybe. And so we're showing a bunch of cool things over there, including a tabletop RPG, which is called Dread. And Dread is a horror tabletop RPG.
Love it.
It's sort of in the storytelling indie RPG genre, but the big trick is when you're attempting to do something, instead of playing a card or drawing a card or rolling a die, you have a tower of wooden blocks that has been constructed, and you have to pull one off the bottom and put it on the top, and if the tower collapses, then all of the terrible things that you've been afraid of happen in that moment.
Just like real life.
Just like real life.
Just like real life.
So Dread is awesome, and again, it's like just a simple thing where they take this fundamental interaction you have, this core mechanic, and they pick one that really has a resonance with the story or the idea they're trying to communicate or the message of the game, which is something we do a lot in, again, really looking for these games that are communicating in that way, the way that we think of all normal art communicating.
Right, exactly. It's sort of like taking a step out of like the screen that we all know as video games to be in, and actually to bring it into different worlds, like you said. Space Team, I think, does a very good job of that, where you are looking at a screen at the same time, but you're also interacting with so many other people.
Well, and that screen is not a screen. Space Team's so clever, right? Because that screen is a control panel, right? Which is often what a video game screen is. But like in the sort of role-playing reality of Space Team, that's what you would have. You'd have a control panel, and you'd be up and about and screaming at everyone, and like it works that way.
What's another? Let's keep going. What's another great game that you can think of that you really want to hit on?
So one of my favorite things in this year's festival is Gravity Ghost, which was just released. It's a new game from Erin Robinson, who's a brilliant game developer.
She's no stranger to Indiecade as well.
No,
like I think
Erin's been around Indiecade for quite some time.
I was about to say, like, one of the first Indiecades I went to, I actually met her when she was doing Puzzle Bots.
Puzzle Bots, yep.
in any case, which is also a very awesome game if you happen to pick that up. Point-and-click adventure, great story, clever characters.
Well, and both these games highlight Erin is an incredibly, I think, clever. Level designer sounds like sort of like a narrow term. It's not what I mean. She takes things that look like on their front sort of straightforward mechanics that you're comfortable with and used to, and she finds ways to design like really clever emergent challenges without adding extra systems, adding extra junk. She like finds ways to make these challenges really compelling, and this is what I love about Gravity Ghost, is that we've seen this, it uses the sort of gravity jumping mechanic. There's a bunch of little
It's sort of like a 2D Mario Galaxy, if going into it.
And that could become very boring very quickly, but instead she actually finds ways to like arrange them and ask you to do things that sort of slowly build it up so that these challenges are really engaging and there's a genuine feeling of accomplishment and puzzle solving. And this is, at its core, what game designers do, right?
Yeah, completely.
But she does it very well.
Well, it's actually beautifully designed, beautifully well done as well. It has sort of this, it obviously has this almost watercolor sort of like feel to it. It's the flow as you collect certain objects, like the hair of the character you're playing as, or I think it's the hair, like it extends.
Yeah, extends.
It starts to extend, and so like as you're jumping around, as you're floating, and like moving from place to place, you have this trail that sort of follows you throughout the whole thing.
It creates beautiful imagery, and it's a cool game. I really like it.
It's absolutely an amazing game. And of course, once again, you can check it out right now.
It already exists.
It already
she released it a month ago?
I think it's on pre-order at least, if it's not already out.
Yeah, that may just be the case.
Otherwise, just give her money. Give her money. Puzzle Bots, that's already out, so definitely download that. What do you see as next gen? What do you see as sort of like going forward?
Well, so there's a lot of stuff going on with next gen that is about faster consoles, that is about taking over living room entertainment, that's all that stuff, which isn't particularly what I tend to think about. I think because these consoles will be where we get most of our entertainment from, it creates an even bigger space to distribute smaller size, smaller priced, independent content with maybe smaller audiences, but that are slightly more personal stories.
Right.
And Sony has been at the festival now for 4 years, I think. And over that time, you've seen them go from having very little indie content and sort of shoddy relations with indie developers to being the indie's favorite place to go.
They pretty much
really have changed. But the thing is, they changed the way they did business with independent developers. They really did. And I like to think that part of that is because they came to the festival and learned from the indies who were there. But regardless, they have done it.
They have picked up a number of great titles from IndieCade, which have later shown up on the PlayStation. Ibn Ob, I think, is a great.
I love that game. It's
it's a great game that I first saw at IndieCade, and then later on, last year I saw it at their tent. I was like, thank God someone is taking this and
bringing it to a slightly larger audience, to people's living rooms.
Well, yeah, giving me a chance to actually play it at home, because I think one of the great things about all these games is that, even though you can play them at IndieCade, you might not always be able to play them at home, or like on the big screen TV that you would really like to.
And this is the difference that I see happening with the next generation, as it concerns me, is that I think there's going to be a lot more of this. I think Nintendo and Sony and Microsoft and these micro consoles that are coming out, Ouya, the Oculus Rift, they're going to be targeting and full of independently developed content. And it's going to be, instead of something that you're playing on your computer that you found on an obscure website, or instead of something you have to go out to a special event that happens once a year to get your hands on, you're going to be playing these games in your home.
Right.
And that's the next generation to me, and I'm really excited about it.
I think that's a wonderful future to look forward to. Yeah. Obviously, we've been talking about IndieCade for weeks now. When is it? Where is it? And how can people get to it?
So the festival kicks off on Saturday. Earlier in the week, our conference and our networking event happened. But starting Saturday, the public festival opens in the middle of downtown Culver City. The easiest thing to do, honestly, is if you're on the Expo line, you can just take the Expo line right to Culver City. It's a 7-minute walk from the end of the Expo line right to where the downtown Culver City, where the Indiecade Village is. Our nominated finalist games happen in the Fire Station, which is just down the block. And then over in the Village, we have big games and table games and digital selects, which is sort of the rest of the official selections. If you come out, there are publicly oriented sessions separate from the professional conference that are really interesting and fascinating. We do a series called Well Played.
It's very cool.
It's awesome. Game designers play games that are in the festival and talk to their designers about how they were made. It's really enlightening and interesting, and a great way to get to learn who these designers are. This is something...
Yeah, completely. I was about to say, like, if you are any way interested in how games are made, or like, you know, how, you know, what goes into it, or even to make your own game, this is a amazing learning opportunity. You're talking to people who've made some amazing games. Like, all these games are picked because there's something special, something incredible about them, and you should try to get your hands, even just to play any of these games. I highly recommend, even if you can't make it over to Culver City, that you check out their website. It's beautifully designed, as well as gives you links to all their websites, so you can buy, try, or just see how some of the games work.
You can find them all.
If you can't find them all.
No, well, you can through the website.
Yeah, of course, of course.
And I also, this is just my personal bell that I ring, but you know, particularly, maybe you're not watching this unless you already are into games, but I encourage everyone to come out and try the stuff that they don't normally think they like. This is a big part of what we do at Indiecade, is we bring a ton of different kinds of content, and no matter who you are, I think there are games to play that will make you happy. And for this audience, maybe bring someone who isn't one of your friends you play games with and say, I actually think there's going to be games here that you like.
Well, I will see you over at Indiecade.
Yes,
and for everyone else, thank you once again for watching the Indie Game Manual with Rob Manuel, and I am Rob Manuel.